Hello everyone and welcome. Have a seat, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and we are going to talk about a bit of a heavy subject. And that is, of course, COVID-19. As some of you know, I manage a coffee shop here in Vancouver, Canada. And up until October, we had been doing takeout only service through the door. Once we opened the stores again for people to come in and sit down, there was a lot of things to consider during planning. I've compiled a list of just 6 things that I feel were key lessons that I learned throughout this process. So, without further ado, number 1, people don't pay attention. No matter how many signs you put up, no matter how obvious they are, people don't read them. Okay, to be fair, most do, but when we first opened, I'd say about 30 to 40% of people didn't use our coaster cards. These were cards we used to designate tables as dirty or clean. If they were green, someone could sit down at the table, and when they left, they were expected to flip the card over to the red side so nobody else would sit there and we would know to go and clean it. Well, that went about as well as you'd expect. Here is a photo of a lady who used it as an actual coaster for her drink, left the cup there for us to clean up, and then walked away. In these cases where people are not following the signage, I really do believe that they're not trying to be malicious, they just don't pay attention. It's going to be frustrating, and all I can say is expect that it will happen, and give people the chance to make up for it by telling them right away that they're doing something wrong. If they're honest and sincere, they'll usually be apologetic and try to make things right. Number 2, prepare for the worst. As a sort of escalation from the first point, you need to have a plan for when anti-maskers and COVID deniers visit your store. It happened to us recently where we rang a guest through, he paid, and we gently let him know that we were now requiring masks inside the store. Well, he said he doesn't believe in masks and he won't be wearing one. I approached him after hearing about this, and he wanted to get into some arguments about the science, so I kind of pushed that off, and I firmly reminded him that he needed a mask. It is our policy, and I'm not here to argue. I left the conversation, made his drink, and I called his name, and of course, as you might expect, he didn't come up with a mask. Again, I asked, do you need us to give you one? This whole thing ended up with him grabbing his phone and recording me, telling him firmly that he would not be served again if he continued to break our rules. If I could go back in time, the biggest change that I would make is that we should have never taken his order or allowed him to pay in the first place. The conversation around masks, or whatever your store policy is, needs to happen first, and a solution needs to be made before you serve them. Have a plan in place to deal with these situations and run through a few scenarios in your mind and with your team. The more prepared you are for the worst cases, the less likely you are to be taken advantage of or to compromise safety because you don't know how to respond to them. Number 3, pick your battles. There are times where you need to decide whether arguing over small details is worth it. A good example for us is that we have 2 doors, and we clearly labeled them entrance and exit. But of course, you do have people still ignore the sign, not see it, and then enter or exit the wrong way. The whole purpose is to control the flow of traffic so that people are not passing by each other too closely when they're exiting or entering. Now, in a lot of cases, for those few who do come in through the wrong door, I'm not likely to say anything, especially if there was nobody coming the other way and the path was clear. I'm not going to make someone go back outside and then come through the proper door. It's a lot of hassle for something that has a pretty minor effect on safety. So figure out what is important to you and your staff. Stick to some core rules, enforce those core rules, but at the end of the day, you're going to need to let some things slide. Controlling so much of what goes on at your cafe all the time is just tiring. Number 4, be overly cautious. In some cafes around the city, I've seen some fairly flimsy efforts to protect staff and customers. The barriers installed are sometimes barely covering the till area, and it's so easy and common for people to lean their head around the barrier when they can't be heard through their mask, which totally defeats the purpose of the barrier. So what we've done is decided to be extra cautious. We invested in large barriers that cover the entire counter space, and we have barriers between seating. Sanitizers are a must, and you should try to get as many floor signs and directions as possible. I know I said people don't read them, but at the very least, you can point to the stickers when you're directing people where you want them to go. It's going to be expensive, and if you're a business owner during COVID, you may not want to be investing a lot up front. But trust me, it's worth it. When I go into our cafe, it makes a world of difference to my mental health knowing that we are doing everything we can to protect our staff and our customers, and it's just a good idea to prepare for the future. If things get worse, if the cases go up, at least you'll be doing as much as you can and you'll already be at the standard you need to be. Number 5, be vocal on social media. If you have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or your own website, you should be using these as tools to reach out to your community. Keeping customers up to date on your COVID policies is extremely important, and so is ensuring that they know your hours of operation, as this is one of the things that tends to change the most for cafes and businesses that are looking to reopen. You should also use your platforms as a space to be clear to your customers about your expectations. You'll see this more and more lately, but cafes are sticking up for their staff. They're reminding the public that being in a service job right now, making you coffee, is tough. And everyone behind the bar deserves respect. Wait times might be longer, we might be short-staffed, and if I ask you to social distance a little bit, I'm not trying to be rude, it's not personal, I'm just looking out for everyone. The more you protect your staff and give them your support publicly, the happier your team will be. That makes less turnover and less training, and that's a win for both sides. And finally, number 6, be compassionate. Recently, we are hearing more and more in the cafe things like, I am so done with this COVID thing. Or when we are asking someone to fill out our contact tracing form, when they sit in with us, they give a big sigh and they ask for their order to go instead. All of this is frustration. It's people who are tired of months and months of social isolation and just want to give their friends and family a hug. These feelings are totally valid, but of course, people don't get to pass on the rules because they experience the frustration and the anxiety more than others. We don't let someone come in without a mask just because they want things to go back to normal. The world we are in now and the lengths we have to go to get just a simple cup of coffee, none of it's normal for you or the customer. So what we can do is treat them with compassion. It's hard to do sometimes, and you really have to be in the right mindset, so take care of yourself first. But if you can, listen to people. Let them rant if they need to, and don't take it personally. As long as they are respecting your rules, I think it's only natural for people to vent these frustrations and things to come to the surface during your conversation. If you can make your cafe experience one where customers feel heard and welcomed, they're more likely to come back. That's it for me today. I hope that this was helpful to someone out there, and if anything was unclear or you need some more advice, please ask any questions in the comments below and I'll make sure that I answer them. I have a lot of other thoughts and ideas around this subject from my experience, and I'd love to help anyone who might be struggling. If you don't have a question, let me know in the comments what your experience is like in your city with your cafes. Do they feel safe to you, and what are they doing differently? Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again next week. Have a great day.